Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Care Vision's Healthy Aging Conversation this Tuesday afternoon. I'll introduce my guest, Wendy Mitchell, in a few minutes, but just as we're coming up to 4 o'clock, while you're getting settled in, maybe getting yourself a cup of tea, I'll just bring you up to date with some of the new material that Care Visions have been producing. Now, regulars will know that we were proud to win the Care Visions Award, the award for Care Visions at the Dementia Care Awards a couple of weeks ago, for the best outstanding resource to support people with dementia. And this program is actually part of that resource. So although you can watch it live, as you may be doing at the moment on Facebook, you can also watch it recorded and it's available on the YouTube channel. And it was the YouTube resources of Care Visions that won the award for the best outstanding resource in the Dementia Care Awards just 10 days ago. So that was a great recognition of the contribution. And Care Visions continues to produce more new material each week. A couple of the videos that I really like that have now gone up are to do with music, a very popular strand of the Care Visions material. Firstly, there's a program about ABBA. Thank you for the music, the legend of ABBA. So as you see, there's one of their song titles has become the title of the program. So if you're an ABBA fan, please do go to the Care Vision site and watch Thank You for the Music, the Legend of ABBA. And then the other one that I particularly warmed to because it brought back some memories for me were Guess the TV Theme. I think we all have well drilled into us some of the TV themes. So there's a Guess the TV Theme from the 1960s. So some of those fantastic theme tunes that one was Lord Peter Wimsey, I remember, it still rings in my head. And I think that Z Cars was another one. So I'm sure all of us have got our favorite TV themes from the 60s and 70s. And you'll find those on the Care Vision site under the Guess the TV Theme video. The other thing that Care Visions is now doing is a whole series of live classes every week, helping people stay connected and to live well. So these are aimed at anyone as they age and as they recognize that they want to keep their mental, physical and spiritual life in good shape. And so there's the whole Care Vision's Healthy programs of live classes available on Facebook every week. Now, it's impossible for me to tell you about all of those because there's simply too many. There's something like 20 classes going out every week that you can join in. But let me just mention a few headlines, ones that stood out for me. If you're at home, as most of us are most of the time, here's some things you might want to join in. One that I'm really keen on, and I know my wife is keen that I go to as well, is the class at 12:30 tomorrow, Wednesday, on interior design. So you can learn from the experts about how interior design should look, how does an interior designer work, what processes do they go through. And so Jenny and Erica, two of the leaders in the field, will be presenting a class at 12:30 tomorrow on interior design. Then moving ahead to Thursday, there are a couple of classes, one that I'd mentioned on Thursday is the Art for Healthy Aging at 11:30 in the morning. We had last week Veronica Franklin-Gould for Arts for Dementia. And one of the things she highlighted in my conversation with her last week is how for anyone as they get older, art is a whole new world. Even if you've never appreciated art before, even if you've never been into music, performing arts, or any of the other arts, this is a chance to start developing your interest in arts. And this class is particularly about drawing. So that's a Healthy Aging Art, 11:30 on Thursday. And then jumping quickly onto Friday morning, at 11 o'clock on Friday morning is the monthly book club with Lucinda Hawksley. And this is taking the Agatha Christie novel, Murder in Mesopotamia. I'm sure many viewers have already read the book and is probably a fan of Agatha Christie. So this week's book is Murder in Mesopotamia at the Healthy Aging Book Club, 11 o'clock on Friday. And if you want to just have a bit of a relaxation at the end of the week and a bit of a laugh and test your knowledge, then there's a trivia quiz at 2:30 in the afternoon on Friday. So your chance to get, if you like quizzes, this is a good fun quiz to end the week on 2:30 on Friday afternoon. So as you will see, a whole array of programming from Care Vision's Healthy Aging on their Facebook site. So I'm now delighted to welcome Wendy Mitchell, who's my guest this afternoon for this week's conversation. Every month or so, I invite somebody with the lived experience of dementia on the programme to give them a chance to talk about their life and their experience. Now, quite often, these are people who don't talk very much about it. Wendy, I think, probably is the opposite, because she's told the world about her experience with dementia in her book. And I've got an early edition, actually, Wendy. I got one of the pre-publication editions here. But somebody I used to know was published in February 2018 and went on to become a Sunday Times bestseller. So Wendy, you've probably single-handedly done more to help people understand what it's like to live with dementia and to deal with some of the concerns people have by your book than probably, I would say, pretty much anybody else. So my first task this afternoon is the very pleasurable task to thank you for all that you've done over the years and continue to do to help people have a better understanding.
That's very kind of you, thank you.
Now, before we go any further, as we're all a bit tired of being locked down and under the cosh of coronavirus, it'd be lovely for you to tell me something that's made you happy in the past week. Have you got an example of a happy moment you've had in the past week to share with the viewers this afternoon?
I have. I'm not sure if it's the past week, but I know it was recently. I think it was around Remembrance Sunday. So I call other people with dementia my playmates. And it was a playmate friend of mine who made a video to show me how to draw poppies on pebbles. And they were quite a success. I was very pleased with what I'd done. And I told the villagers via our village Facebook page that I would hide them around the village very early in the morning for them to find during the day when they were out for their walks. And I had so many replies. It started to feel a tad overwhelming because I only had 30 and there was most of the village replied saying they were going to look for them. Anyway, I went out early one morning and hid them between tree branches and standing on a fence post, all sorts of places. And they were all found. And I had lovely pictures sent to me of children proudly holding their pebble that they'd found.
That's
so
lovely.
It was. It was so special. It was a lovely day.
So now you've done it once. Next year, people will expect you to do it again with even more pebbles.
Yeah, well, I'm doing it at Christmas now with Christmas-themed pebbles.
Ah, wonderful. That's lovely. That's you set up a whole new tradition for the village. Well, I think that's a lovely story.
Yeah,
I'm going to come on
together.
Yeah, that's really nice. So I'm going to come on and talk to you a little bit about your book and what you did. But just tell me, from your personal experience, what do you do to keep yourself physically and mentally as well as you can be? What steps do you take yourself?
Well, it's important. I found it's important during this lockdown simply to go out for a walk. And I always take my camera with me. I was known around the village first as the camera lady, not Wendy with dementia, which was lovely. So every day I go out for a walk and snap whatever I see and then put it on the village Facebook page for everyone else to see. And for those that can't get out, I have lovely comments of how they've been seeing the village, how it is, even though they can't get out. So my photos have been a win-win because they make me happy and they make other people happy.
That's wonderful. And is photography something you've always done, or is it a new hobby that you've developed recently?
I only got my camera just before lockdown, so that was very lucky. And I chose a camera that I've always had in the past. So even though it was a newer model, all the buttons were in the same places. So it was familiar. I mean, I only use the click and the zoom, even though it can do 101 other things.
I think that's the same as most people. Most people, I think, only use one or two of the functions on a computer or a camera. But if you can produce good pictures, which I'm sure you do, then that's all that matters.
Absolutely.
So, Wendy, thank you again for joining me this afternoon. If anyone watching wants to ask Wendy a question, then please do put it into the chat function on Facebook so that we have that, and we'll come, if we have time at the end, to any questions. So do put forward any questions you have in the chat function. But Wendy, I really wanted to start. I said your book has been an amazing success, a Sunday Times bestseller, which is unusual, I think unique for any book written about dementia, or indeed any other health issue book. Why did you start writing the book? What happened that led to you feeling you wanted to write a book?
Well, I'd been asked many times by publishers if I would write a book, but I knew I couldn't write a book by myself because I'd write the same thing on every page. I wouldn't know what I'd written. So when the lovely Anna Wharton emailed me asking if she could write a book with me, the possibility became a reality. Her father died of dementia over 20 years ago when she was in her 20s, and she thought we could write a book that she wished she'd had at that time. But because I lived at the other end of the country, we had to find a way that would work. And I couldn't use the telephone. So we wrote the whole book via email and WhatsApp. And emojis just took on a whole new meaning. As for its content, well, my book is about life, really. My book is about life and how we deal with difficult situations. Because how we deal with them can make or break us and the path that we choose. And I'm lucky I've always been a glass half full person. So I try to turn negative experiences into positives because that's the only way I know how to cope. But obviously my book is my version of events and my version of dementia. And there's so many sides to what dementia looks like, and this happens to be my side.
Yeah, and one of the things that came across to me reading your book is just that it's giving people permission to talk about dementia and to feel it's okay to say they've got dementia and to talk about their experience. I mean, have other people commented like that to you?
Oh yes, absolutely. I've literally had thousands of emails from people all over the world, because my book's also been translated into 13 other languages as well. So I think that my favorite is from a 85-year-old in Jamaica with dementia, who says after reading my book, she uses my tips around her house, and that enables her to live alone still. So how amazing is that?
That's wonderful.
And the biggest thing it gives people is hope. And that's the one thing we're not given at diagnosis.
So in terms of the message you want any reader to take away from reading the book, what's the key messages that you would want somebody to take away once they've read your book?
Well, people seem to expect my book just to be sad. But I hope they're surprised to find it also filled with humour and adventures and so much more. But by the very nature of my diagnosis, my book is about the loss of the old, but also the birth of the new me. My daughters call me now a gregarious alien that they never knew. But what I hope it shows more is how relationships change and how adapting to this disease is the key to surviving it. And yes, it is sad in parts, obviously it is, but I also believe it gives people hope to show them that there's still a life still to be lived.
Yeah, and I think you're very much a demonstration of that, because you were diagnosed when you were what, 58?
Yeah.
And you know, since then you've developed, if you like, a whole new life. It's almost a new you that's come to flourish.
It is. It's as I say, a gregarious alien, and you used to be so private. And yet I was so saddened and shocked by the lack of awareness. Now I'll talk to anybody about dementia.
Yeah, well, you're very good at doing it. And let me ask you, you mentioned your daughters, Sarah and Gemma. What impact has it had on them? How? Because you talk quite a lot about this in the book, about because it's not just one person who's affected, it's a whole family who's affected.
Yeah, when I got the diagnosis, so did my daughters. But the most powerful lesson we've learned is the power of talking. Because if we don't talk, and it has to be a two-way conversation, they don't know what's worrying me, but also I'm still a mum, so that I want to know what's worrying them as well. And that's so important to me. So whenever dementia throws a challenge, we talk about it and work it out through Team Mitchell.
That's lovely. And is that on a regular basis all the time? You're having those conversations?
All the time. Whenever any of us want to talk, we just talk now. We've normalised having uncomfortable conversations.
Well, was that difficult to begin with? Did you find it hard to get to that space?
Oh, absolutely, because they are uncomfortable. You don't talk to your children about end of life. You don't talk to your children about what you're struggling with, because you've always looked after them and protected them. So it was really, really difficult for me to do that, but also for them to understand that the tables are turned and they look out for me now.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that they're looking out for you, and as you say, that's a different relationship, but you're still looking out for them as well. You're still supporting them. You're still a mum.
Yes.
And that's really important to remember, that it doesn't, just because you've got the issue to deal with yourself, you're wanting support from your family, but they can equally still turn to you.
Absolutely. We just do it in different ways now.
Yeah. But I think that's a good, important message for anyone to say.
It's very, very important.
It's worth working at as well. It doesn't come easily. It's almost counterintuitive. It's not what you're used to doing.
No.
But would you say then you're closer to your daughters now than you ever were before?
Absolutely. We've never been close. We were always close. Obviously, we were close. But we've never been closer than we are now, because we share so much that we never shared before. Not because we didn't want to, we just didn't have the time. And dementia has taught us to make the most of the time that we have.
Yes, that's a very positive message. Now, in your book, a whole number of things that you've done to help cope with everyday life. I mean, one of the things that might be worth telling people about is your memory wall, because that's something you did quite early on, didn't you? You created your memory wall. Can you just explain that? Because that's a lovely story in the book.
Yes, I think everybody should have a little corner of their house, no matter how big or how small, that's sent over to the special memories, photographs of people that you love, places that you love, so that when times are hard, you just go and sit in front of these images and you can't help but bring a smile to your face, because mine is a whole room, just every wall is strung with photographs and memories. And so when I'm stressed and dementia is giving me a hard time, I simply go and sit in that room and look at all the things that I love and all the places I love. And everybody should have a little piece of that in their house, because trust me, it makes you feel so happy.
Yeah, that's really important. And do you keep adding to the wall, or is it something that's now fixed, or do you keep changing it and adding to it?
I add to it. I don't change the things, but I keep adding. I'll run out of walls soon. Yeah.
And the other thing that I think I'm right in remembering from reading your book was Post-it notes became important to you. in terms of
Yeah.
helping find your way around and know what's what. Just to say a little bit more about that.
Yes, well, they've taken on a different meaning now. When I could write, I'd write on Postit notes and stick it on the front door to tell me to take my keys, remember to lock the door, etc. And remember to do this and that. But sadly, in the last year, probably, I can't write very well anymore and often can't read what I've written. So now I use my iPad even more. Technology has taken over from my huge pile of Post-it notes that I used to have.
Right. But you're able to type. You're still able to, because you do produce an awful lot of content on social media. I take my hat off to you, Wendy, because you're wonderful at keeping us all up to date and bringing a smile to our face often when you just talk about your everyday life and the journeys and you've been on and the people you've met and the things you've done.
Well, I'm a Twitter-holic and Facebook now, but Twitter is my main thing. And I call it my silent world of conversation. Right. Because it's my way of keeping connected with people, but I usually need silence to do that. And I'm very lucky that I can type quicker than I can think and speak. So I can watch my fingers before the words have even entered my head, because seems to be a different pathway from brain to fingers. And I'm sometimes astonished at what I type, what my fingers type. But it's a lovely way of, I call it my escape from dementia, because it's lovely to have a way of escaping, and typing is my escape.
And do you feel you connect to other people's lives through the material that they share with you as well? Do you feel close to people through that?
I do. I really do. I've met so many wonderful people that I've never met in person. I simply know as a name on Twitter or Facebook. And yet, I know the lovely views they put of their surroundings when I put of my surroundings. So it's a two-way conversation again. People are supporting me to stay connected, but I always feel that I'm supporting them to remember to love the small moments in a day, never to forget those small moments of magic.
Yes. Now, in terms of thinking positively around what you can do when you have dementia, one of the things I found unusual in your book, but actually very reassuring, was the importance of participating in research. And you've now been given 2 honorary doctorates, one from Hull and one from Bradford. So your connection with the academic world is clearly there. But is that research connection important to you?
Oh, I can't tell you how important research is. When you're diagnosed, the medics use totally the wrong language, that there's nothing they can do. If only they turn it round and say, but remember, there's so much you can still do. And I can offer you hope by giving you access to research. You know, they so rarely do that nowadays. They forget that there is something they can do. They can raise the issue of research, and research gives me that hope that my daughters will have a better future. So why wouldn't I love research?
So are you currently involved in any research studies at the moment?
Oh, so many that I can't list them anymore.
Any spring to mind as any that you're particularly think are important?
Well, there's lots around COVID. They're the ones that are all in my head at the moment. There's a speech and language therapy one that's happening, because it's too important to remember that although clinical research, we'd love to find the elusive cure, as they keep saying, but for those of us living with dementia, the social and technological research is equally important, because we have to find the best ways to live and the best ways to care for those that can no longer
Yes.
care for themselves.
And it does seem that an awful lot of money and focus goes on to developing new drugs, and it's been a long, long time and no answers have come through yet. And that costs millions and millions of pounds. But it does, from what you're saying, and I think it ties into Care Visions and what it stands for, is saying there's a lot more we could do to understand better the everyday things you can do to live better and to keep yourself as well as possible. And sounds like some of your research that you're interested in is precisely that area of getting to know better what keeps people living as well as possible.
Well, I have a vested interest.
Because do you think the mix of different activities is important? So we know that music has always been seen as a strong contributor, but is it important to have a number of different kinds of activities people can get involved in?
It really is. The doing is important. Doesn't matter what you do, what you enjoy. I hate it when I see people just sitting in care homes doing nothing, because believe me, there's nothing more comforting than sitting doing nothing with dementia. Sat with your eyes closed with no stimulation is absolute heaven. But I'm intuitive enough to know that is so bad for me, because I can feel dementia seeping into my brain. And so that's why so many people with dementia just want to sit. But that's dementia's cruel way of giving you a false sense of comfort that doing nothing is good, when the exact opposite is the truth. So keeping your brain, your body, in any way possible active is keeping dementia at bay.
Yeah, and that sounds an important advice, because it is very tempting to sort of give in, if you like, and to feel that the dementia will take over.
Oh, so
what kind of things have you started?
I
mean, in terms of your own activities, what kind of things have you started doing? You talked about photography. Are there other things you've started doing in recent years to keep yourself active? And
yeah, my pebble painting is the newest thing. I watch YouTube videos over and over to get one little character right on a pebble. But that gives me such pleasure, and I have to concentrate. And also, I learned to knit again. I haven't knit in years, and yet a playmate sent me a video for how to do each step.
Right.
And I created lots of things for that. So never think because we have dementia that we can't. We just need help and support to do what we've always loved, or to find something new.
And I do love your expression of playmate, which are other people living with dementia, isn't it? So you have a sort of a way of sharing ideas between yourselves and sharing with other people, which is beautiful.
We do all the time. We teach each other. There's a painting class going on at the moment, a playmate teaching other playmates how to paint, because she was an artist.
Right.
And they're producing amazing images now. So,
And I remember talking to one person who I met who had dementia, lived down in Hampshire, who discovered that they could do watercolour painting, and they'd never painted before in their life. And they'd suddenly discovered that this was something they quite enjoyed and could do well. So that opportunity, and I mentioned earlier the Care Visions art class that happens every week. So there is an opportunity for anyone to get involved, whether you have dementia or not, really, as just somebody who wants to keep themselves stimulated. There are opportunities to do so.
And that's good for anybody.
Yes.
As you say, not just for people with dementia. Everybody needs to do.
So tell me, before we finish, because we're going to run out of time shortly, I'm afraid, but I did want to come on to anything, your experience living with COVID, because obviously it's changed everything. I know you from old, and I know that you spent all your time doing so well traveling around the country. I mean, just before we get to COVID, how did you manage to learn to because you traveled on your own a lot of the time, and you obviously got yourself very well organized. Just How did you manage to do that? Because that always inspired me.
Well, I used to be a highly organised person, and dementia didn't take that away from me. So now, when I did travel, it used to take an enormous amount of work to travel anywhere. People think I magically just appeared, but I had a pink file with photographs of where I was going to be familiar, of every station that I would pass through to be familiar, of alarms set to say get off the train. The amount of work it took was unbelievable.
But you achieved a lot as a result.
What was the alternative? To sit at home with dementia? I don't think so.
No. So tell me, so COVID obviously has stopped you doing the travelling. How have you managed to live as well as possible during COVID? What tips would you have for anyone watching?
It's been so difficult. It's been a huge roller coaster with many highs and many extreme lows. But it's the doing bit that's important. And COVID has allowed me to discover what's right on my doorstep, my village. And instead of sowing seeds far and wide, I've been sowing them in the very place I live. And now many other people have read my book in my village now and asked me questions about dementia. So the walks I do, the photographs I take, they're all my doing during this COVID.
Yeah.
And it's not always, my phrase is there's always a way. And so I'm always looking for a way to outwit dementia.
Well, you're always such a very positive person. And one story I love, which you might want to share with viewers, is getting confused about your front door, which is in the book. It's a lovely illustration of a problem and the solution you found to the problem. So would you like to just tell people about that experience?
I live in a row of 4 identical houses, and when I first moved in the village, I kept going up my neighbour's drive and trying to let myself into their house. And I met my neighbours by trying to let myself into their house. So you can imagine the shock on their face. But none of my neighbours were safe unless I found a way to make my house my house. So I met a lovely man in York who made tiles with flowers on. And I told him the significance of forget-me-nots. And then out of the blue one day, in the post, 6 forget-me-not tiles arrived with his compliments. And so I stuck 1 tile each side of my front door. And now I always know that that door is my door.
That's lovely. And it's a great way of being inventive and finding a way to, and I suppose now you could do it with painted pebbles.
Oh, I could. Yes.
No, that's a wonderful story. So anything else you would suggest people do to keep themselves feeling positive at the moment? What would you suggest? Anyone who's feeling a bit lonely and a bit isolated?
Yes.
Maybe connecting on social media.
Yes, keep connected. Zoom is the new thing of COVID, and I hated Zoom. I couldn't work Zoom out, but I had someone sit with me and show me how to use Zoom. And it's very simple once you know how. So don't be afraid to just give it a go. But also, keep connected in some way. Put a card through a neighbour's letterbox to say hello. I'm just saying hello and I hope you're okay. Little tiny things make people feel special.
No, well, Wendy, that's a wonderful note. We've run out of time completely, so we haven't got time for any questions, I'm afraid, but it's been fantastic talking to you and lovely to send on a very positive note of what you can do. Just putting a note through your neighbour's door is a lovely example of just keeping connected. And then at the other extreme, you can go on social media and connect with people all around the world. Yes. So Wendy Mitchell, thank you so much for being my guest this afternoon. Anyone who hasn't read Wendy's book, someone I used to know, please, get a copy of the book now. It's still available. So somebody I used to know, written by Wendy Mitchell, is the book that we should all be reading if we haven't read it. And I've enjoyed looking through it again, even though I read it first a couple of years ago. So Wendy, thank you for being my guest this afternoon. And just to let everyone know that my guest next week will be Councillor Ian Hudspeth, the leader of Oxfordshire County Council and chair of the Local Government Association Community Wellbeing Committee. So he'll be able to tell us what the councils can do to help everyone as they get older and live as well as possible. Wendy, thank you so much, and everybody have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.